Hello, okay, this is the second part of the Understanding Anger presentation. So let's look at some forms of anger and some techniques for dealing with anger, for calming ourselves down. Very common these days is road rage. Is my drawing of angry eyes, people behind the wheel of a car. Now, causes of road rage, well, clearly the roads in many places have become far busier. The way we have to drive has become more complex road systems, and other drivers are also becoming emotional behind the wheel. The pressure of having to make our journeys in a certain time frame, other things going on in our lives at the same time, plus the fact that when we are insulated from other people by the walls and windows of our cars, there's a certain unreality, there's a certain distance between us and them. So just as you might sing in the shower cubicle at the top of your voice when you might be embarrassed to do that in front of other people, people are often quite content to rage and become unreasonably angry in the safety and privacy of their own vehicle, where they might not do it to somebody else's face. Well, some people would. Wherever the cause is, what we find is that people in cars get angry and become a danger to themselves and others. So you're driving along, somebody cuts you up, maybe make a mistake on the road, they're driving too quickly, too aggressively, and you react to them in an aggressive manner yourself. Now, the cure to road rage is several approaches to this. The first is physically calm yourself down. Now, the 7-11 breathing technique, which I talked about in the stress presentation, is an incredibly useful technique here. Rather than allowing yourself physically to become worked up, use 7-11 breathing, which means you breathe in to a count of 7, out to a count of 11. The numbers are not particularly important. The main thing is the out breath is considerably longer than the in breath, and this invokes certain physiological processes that are known to calm us down. So as we're driving along, if we stop the traffic lights, rather than get frustrated or hit the lights again, no, this is a lovely opportunity to do some 7-11 breathing and to calm myself down, to enjoy being calm and peaceful. Can't do anything about it, I might as well just enjoy some relaxation. So breathing in to a count of 7 into the abdomen, out to a count of 11. Doing that continuously. So that's useful, a direct sort of feedback to that arising emotional content. This feeds back and calms it right down. And changing our self-talk. What I mean by this is that when somebody cuts us up on the road, when the traffic lights are against us, wherever it is, we think, oh no, the traffic lights again, that person is driving like an idiot, he's trying to kill me. This is emotional. This is treating other people as if they're our enemies. We're treating the very road system, the traffic lights, as if they're obstacles to us, as if they're enemies to be overcome. And of course we are, when you have got an enemy, you have to deal with it, either by running away, which you can't do, or in combat, which is the anger side again of the fight or flight response. But if you change that self-talk, which is one example, the lights providing you with a few moments of calm and relaxation. You didn't know you were going to get it, but now there's nothing you can do about it. And so you've provided a few moments of calming 7-11 breathing, a little longer to listen to your music on the radio, whatever it is. But also talk about other people. Oh, that person is driving like a fool. He must be under a great deal of pressure to be driving like that. Sounds a bit corny, but what you're trying to do is bring empathy online. That person is driving way too fast to be safe. He must be desperate to get where he's going. He must be under a great deal of pressure at work. Or that person is not driving safely. He looks like a young person. Well, clearly his brain circuits for self-regulation haven't fully developed yet. I hope he doesn't kill himself before they do. So by changing our self-talk to ways of understanding, being empathic with other people, we no longer see them as enemies, rather we have a certain sympathy with them or empathy for them, which means that we are less likely to become angry with them. Now, even though this sounds a bit corny, it actually really works. It takes a little bit of practice, because of course old habits have to be overcome, old habits die hard. So if you feel yourself thinking, that fool, that idiot, stop yourself, hang on a minute, anybody driving like that must be under a lot of pressure. And just let it go, let it go. And reframe the objective of your journey. Now, we all like to arrive in a timely fashion where we go and we don't want to be late for work, for an appointment, whatever it is. But the objective, you change it. My objective is not to get there as quickly as possible, but the primary objective is to arrive safely. So anything that slows me down is not threatening my life. And so if I'm being held up on the roadworks, whatever it is, again, the main objective is not being threatened at all, which is to get there safely. I may be a little bit late, but at least I'll be safe. So again, not allowing secondary objectives to get in the way of primary objectives, because the temptation is, if you get held out in one section of the journey, to go faster in other sections of the journey. So then what you're doing is trying to achieve the secondary objective, which is to get there in a certain time. But what you're doing is undermining the primary objective, which is to get there safely. So always keep that primary objective in line. So 7-11 breathing to calm you down physically, changing the self-talk, using empathy for other road users, and reframing your objective, the primary objective, to get there safely. Okay, let's have a look at the experience of anger from the inside. Gives you a sense of power and control, simplifies thinking, empowers you physically. People talk about the anger rush. Now we've mentioned in part 1 that it's going to be similar to sexual arousal. I also mentioned black and white thinking. Your thinking style is simplified. The more turned on the emotional circuits are, the more turned off your neocortexes, the frontal lobes, and so you're thrown back on a more simplistic thinking style. So effectively you're pretty stupid when you're very angry, but you won't feel right. The world is simplified. I'm right, they're wrong, which is a nice feeling. But this also goes to show that trying to have a reasonable conversation with somebody who's very angry, trying to reason with them, negotiate with them, you're on a hide into nothing. Don't bother, because they simply do not have access to their intelligence centres in the frontal lobes. They are working off a different part of the brain. So the only thing stupider than an angry person is the person trying to reason with them. So everybody needs to calm down before anything useful can be achieved. That person may be getting angry for various reasons. Maybe they're stressed. Something's going on in their life which gives them less spare emotional capacity, so they get angry quicker. Maybe something that's happened to them in the past. Maybe there's trauma there. Maybe they've been traumatised on operations if they're a military person. Whatever's gone on, I've often had it said, since he came back from ops, he's Mr. Angry, he's changed. Well, maybe there's stuff in the past that needs to be dealt with that is causing current stress. Anybody who's carrying a trauma has less spare emotional capacity available to them, so they become angry easier. And remember, in our society, for most males, it is more acceptable to show anger than tears. So often people dig deep, and if they can manipulate their emotions at all, they rather become angry than become upset. So there may be something that needs to be dealt with by a decent therapist. People may lack communication or negotiation skills. Maybe they haven't learned them, or what you're dealing with is so complex, and when we think we can't cope, we can't keep up with the argument, we can't do what's required of us at the office, wherever it is, we may fall back on anger as a way of just getting through it, bully people into getting to the end point. People with low self-esteem, interestingly, often cover it up by becoming angry. If they feel as if they're not up to it in other areas of their life, they may feel, at least I'm going to be the boss physically, I'm going to dominate the circumstance by being bullish and bullying. People who've sustained brain damage, either through impact or injury, or through alcohol abuse or drug abuse, again, if that's going on, they may get angry more easily. But their internal experience of anger, power and control, a rush, simplified thinking, because it simplifies a complicated world, makes it all come clear for the time they're in anger. For some people this can be, at least temporarily, quite a nice place to be compared the rest of their lives. So they try and hang on to it, that's the point. People who don't demonstrate anger outwardly often become what is commonly known as passive-aggressive. So passive aggression, when we use that word, people bandy about a lot, not knowing what it means. But what it means is they're seething inside, they're really angry, but they're not showing it. They may give you the silent treatment. There may be people like, oh, you're walking on eggshells with them because they're brittle, you never know where they're going to be. But they won't have the outburst, but they're angry inside. They won't give it to you straight, but maybe they'll try and undermine you or sabotage you in some way, or just gossip about you behind your back. And so they nurse anger, they nurse resentment. They just be moody or off, make your life a misery, but you don't quite know what you've done. This sort of thing. This goes on a lot in close relationships. And really these people, again, their lives are a misery because they're always rehearsing unpleasant things in their imagination and keeping the anger on the boil. So you've got to get a grip of what's going on in your imagination to be rehearsing this anger all the time. But living with a passive-aggressive is a right pain. So again, something we don't want to do. So dealing with anger, we've talked about road rage and ways of that. Well, let's think of a person who's becoming angry. So think, first of all, what are you becoming angry about? Who are you becoming angry with? What are the issues you're becoming angry about? When did this Mr. Angry Person, Mrs. Angry Person appear? What was going on in your life at the time when you started becoming angry? Was there an incident? Were you traumatised? Was there stress in your life? Is there somebody who always winds you out? Do you become angry with somebody who's not the cause of your anger? It's very common for something else to make you angry, but the person who gets it is the person who's closest to you, husband, wife, partner, whatever, because you feel safe with them. So the old adage of coming home and kicking the dog because you had a bad day in the office. This is the sort of thing we mean. So think clearly. I know you need to be calm to do this. Reframe the circumstances. We've done a bit of reframing in road rage. Oh, that poor person who'd be driving like a fool, he must be under a lot of pressure. Again, thinking about things in a different sort of a way can give us a different angle on them. That person who's a bully in work, if we start just taking it personally, he's my enemy, I've got to get back at him, that's going to end problematically. If you think, well, he's a bully, probably means he's not coping very well, maybe he lacks self-esteem. If that's the best way you can find to cope in life, that guy's got a lot of problems, I doubt if he's got a very happy home life, immediately you're taken into a place of greater empathy. Okay, you still got to start him bullying, but you haven't got to get hugely emotional about it yourself. That's the point. So reframing circumstances. If it's a partner who's winding you up, he always leaves his socks on the bar, he always never puts his shoes away, he never tidies up after himself, and he's getting at me. I've asked him to do it, he doesn't respect me enough, so therefore you're defending yourself, you're becoming angry. But you think, oh, he's left his shoes out again. That's one of the charming things I love about him, is that he's so laid back. Now again, sounds corny, sounds a bit silly, but some of these things we get angry about are so trivial. Now, he should make more of an effort to put his shoes away, perhaps, or tidy up around the house, whatever it is. But do you want to really fall out massively over such things, or do you want to have a rational debate about it? Because everybody's got to order their home lives. But you getting angry about it doesn't serve anything. So be able to reframe it as, oh, my child, she's always a pain in the neck, but I'm glad she's got a strong personality that'll stand her in good stead when she goes out to face the world and when she leaves home. So again, there's different ways of thinking about things. Are there other ways of thinking about the things, about the people that are making you angry? Very important, reframing. Now for the $1 million technique, the ABCD technique. Anybody who is subject to anger, and many people tell me I can't help it. It comes over me. We're talking and the red mist descends and immediately I find myself shouting and screaming and raging and banging doors and wherever it is. And it's as if they are victims of anger. And once it reaches a certain level, if you like, certain head of steam, it's almost impossible to drag back. It just kicks on a life of its own. It has to be played through. The first step in getting a grip on this is awareness. So what does it feel like to you when you get angry? Are there certain physical sensations? Do you feel a tightening of the muscles? Do you feel a tension between the shoulder blades and the back of the neck? Do you feel you get hot, a flush in your face? Do you feel the muscles in your face tensing and tightening? Are you find yourself gripping your fists? Do you feel your heart is racing? Are you aware that you're breathing a bit more quickly? Whatever it is, you will have your own physical cues that this is about to take off. And if you can become more and more and more aware, you can catch it at an earlier and earlier and earlier stage. And the earlier you can catch it, the better, the more effective these techniques are going to be. So monitor yourself. Be aware of your anger. What's it like for you? Catch yourself at an earlier and earlier stage. As soon as you're aware, you can train yourself to become aware at earlier stages, but immediately you're aware, oh, I'm starting to go, you move on to B, blocking. So stop. You may have to say to yourself, stop. Now at this point, you've got to do something. You've got to challenge that anger. And challenging takes your frontal lobes. You've got to rationally trot out the reasons why being angry is not going to help. Me getting angry all the time is going to ruin my relationships. It's not going to help me solve my problems. In 5 years' time, in 6 months' time, I'm going to be sad and lonely. Challenge yourself. I lose access to my frontal lobes. I'm stupid when I'm angry. It's just an addictive, habitual behaviour. I need to grow up and need to deal with my problems more effectively. So by forcing yourself to use your frontal lobes, your rational parts, you are effectively keeping the emotional brain in place. So awareness, blocking, challenging, and then D, massively important, something to distract yourself, distraction. Because if you stay in that place and you ponder the material or keep talking to the person that is making you angry, it's going to get you again. So you've got to immediately have stuff prepared that is calming, enjoyable, that you know works for you, whether it's listening to a piece of music, whether it's walking along the block, whether it's taking out a magazine about your hobbies. You've got to have these things ready. If you're in a work situation, have a magazine about your hobby in the desk drawer, or carry something along with you. Have some piece of music on your iPod. Have a friend ready to be phoned, prime them, if you're a good friend who can talk you down. But do something that takes your mind off it, and something which is calming. And only come back to the issue once you've calmed down and you've got full access to your rational brain. If you're always getting angry with the same person, and again, it's often at home, it could be partner, husband, wife, you've got to co-opt them into this. You've got to prepare them that as soon as I feel myself getting angry, we're having a discussion, I feel myself going, I've got to be able to call a time out. And your partner has to agree that this is going to happen. And then you have to just stop immediately. It's no good going on with the conversation, so you mustn't be badgered to carry on talking, or we'll never discuss things, you either get angry or you're backing off. No, you would both agree, time out. That's got to be honoured. And immediately time out is called, you've got to go. Get out of there, go to a different room, leave the house for at least 20 minutes. Because it takes a good 20 minutes for these emotional arousal circuits, these instinctive templates to start to come down. But again, in that 20 minutes, do some 7-11 breathing. Use your distraction method, which calms you down. Do not be thinking of the discussion that got you wound up in the first place. Otherwise, you're only rehearsing the anger template. So awareness, blocking, challenging, distraction. Use the time out and use it effectively. Get the cooperation of your partner. Now what you're doing is retraining habitual responses. Brain circuits that fire often become stronger. So you've practiced being angry. The stimulus is this issue, this person, this environment, whatever it is. You've practiced becoming angry so often it's become really swept up. And so you can get angry now really quickly when the stimulus comes along. Sometimes it happens so quick it's beyond your conscious control. It's a really well-fired neuronal pathway. you have to stop it enough so that it just wears out, it dissipates, it becomes less strong, loses strength. And you have to practice other positive pathways to strengthen them, pathways of being calm and reasonable. So we're changing habitual responses. It's really, really possible to do. It's very effective. The other thing is the way we talk to each other. We're talking about life negotiation skills here. Because often when people discuss stuff that's important to them, they become very defensive, or they become very aggressive, very confrontational, very assertive, and you end up really against each other. But if you're with somebody you love and care about, you're trying to build a life with them, or even if you're just trying to work with them, the objective should be that everybody wins. We're in this relationship to help each other to get our needs met in balance. So we should be assisting each other to make a life for ourselves that works for us all. So we must remember we're on the same side. We're not opponents here. We're on the same side, trying to create a society, a workplace, a family home that works for everybody. And when we use statements that attack the other person, you always do this, you always make me feel like that, it's your fault I'm this way, that just doesn't work. That is just weapons you're throwing in a direction of the other person. And they're going to defend themselves as saying, I don't make you feel anyways, you make yourself feel that way. And before you know it, there's a great big clash. But life negotiation skills begin with I statements. I feel like this. I act this way. I struggle with this when this happens, when you do that, when you say this, when you treat me this way. And I'm not saying it's your fault, but I'm telling you how I feel. I'm taking responsibility for that, and I would like you please to help me to feel better, to act differently, to create a different environment. So always begin with an I statement. I feel frustrated when I find that you've left your clothes around the house again, because I'm trying to create a good home for us. I'm trying to tidy the house. It takes me a lot longer to do that, so I would really appreciate it if you could help me just by putting your dirty clothes in the rubbish basket. So you're not accusing anybody, you're just telling them how you feel and how you would be helped if they did that. And this is a different way of speaking. Again, it can feel rather artificial, but not many people, not many people, when you tell them how you feel and you ask for their help, will react in a combative, defensive way. They're more likely to act in a way that offers the assistance. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you felt like that. I'll do my best to remember, but you know what I'm like, I'll probably forget again. But please remind me. When you do the reminding, remind them with the I statements. And keep the emotion out of it. So we're aiming for a situation where everybody wins, so that our conversations, our communications have this objective in mind. It's not to get my way, it's to get a solution for everybody. Now then, the habitual reactions rule is this. It's 3-7 is the ratio we discovered. Now this is, again, broadly speaking, but we've discovered that 3 consistent repetitions are enough to start forming a habit. What we mean by this is, you meet a certain environment, certain circumstance, certain person, you use anger to get your own way 3 times in a row. You may have got some results from doing that, because it does work sometimes for some things, and then it becomes a habit. That neuronal pathway has started to strengthen, and you're more likely to do it again the 4th time, the 5th time, the 6th time in the future. You start to strengthen the neuronal pathways, that's what we're talking about. So 3 consistent practices of a habitual reaction are enough to get that habit in place. They reckon it takes 7 consistent practices to break a habit, or to seriously weaken a habit. So if 7 times in a row you can catch it before it takes off, apply it, all of this stuff, 7 times in a row, it's not asking for much, you're then well on the way of getting this thing sorted. So persistence and a consistent approach. So don't stop at 3, 4 and 5 or 6 and say, this is not really working, I've had it, and I'm just going to carry on the way I always was. Push it on, because this stuff can work, and you will undermine the anger template, and you will strengthen more positive life negotiation skills, being calm, using your rational brain, ways of solving problems which are more acceptable to everybody. So there, in a nutshell, is the essence of anger management. You can read massive tomes on this, but this is distilled, it works, use it, and you'll be really surprised how well it does. But do remember, if you have experienced a traumatic event or a highly stressful life event that you feel is contributing to the anger, please go and talk to somebody who you trust about it, preferably somebody with psychological training. Okay, that's the end of this presentation on anger management and understanding anger. Hope you enjoyed.